Good morning, day 170. Something satisfying about round numbers that I think is in our DNA. Wow. So, yeah, I'm a little later than normal today. I might be tomorrow too. This particular plan I'm following has a lot of chapters being read today and tomorrow as we will finish Jeremiah tomorrow. But I did make it through 6 or 7 chapters this morning. I'm going to have to, I think, put my sunglasses on. And I think it was chapters 32, 31 through 38 this morning. And man, there's a lot to unpack there. I like Jeremiah. He speaks my language with all these really interesting stories and analogies. And and this one is not going to disappoint. There's several good ones. And the overall theme, as we continue on applying this metaphorically to ourselves when we want to make a change in our life, or maybe we don't even want to. We just hear the calling and we're like, are you sure? My life's pretty good. Do I really need to do that? But you've got that little desire or the whisper, Jeremiah, in your ear going, you know. And then there's this time. So I gave an overall, like a high level 30,000 foot view of sort of what happens when you want to make a change. It kind of feels like and then when you actually do it and go through it, you feel like you're being in an exiling part of yourself. Or maybe you really are fully in exile and a stranger in the strange land. But before we get to that point, we're going to back up a minute. That's what Jeremiah is even doing in these scriptures, is the writings on the wall. And I had to really think back. Actually, I don't really have to think back because I'm kind of in the middle of another one of those periods right now, where the writing's on the wall and you're like, is it really that bad? I don't know. You go through this period before you start making the change and before you voluntarily put yourself into exile and start doing things differently, where you're like, you kind of let the cat out of the bag with yourself. You acknowledge this part of yourself. And then you're like, whoa, that means that's going to require this, this, and that. And do we really want, like the war starts inside your head about, is it really that bad? Is it really going to be that good if we do this? Like all the internal chatterboxing starts. And Jeremiah is kind of like that. You know, our desires are like a prophecy. Like they're a prophet in our head going, yeah, we really need to do this. Yeah, I know it seems scary. It's going to be okay. So in chapter 32, it's really interesting. Jeremiah makes a land purchase. And he says, this is kind of strange, God, that you're having me do this. Like he gives him some instructions. Even though Jerusalem is going to be burned and destroyed by the Babylonians, God tells him to go purchase a piece of land. He's going to need it. Like he's staking a claim. Literally, like that's where the term staking a claim comes from, is, in regards to property. So he's going ahead and saying, yep, this is what's going to happen. And when it all has happened and I come back, I'm going to need a piece of land. This is who I am. This is where, like, we will go through this journey and this exhalation. And we will also, though, return and be reintegrated, reunited. And so he's going ahead and like purchased a piece of land. He even puts the deed with witnesses in a clay jar to be preserved. That's like, I can think back and remember all my journaling. Like, yep, I know I really need to do this. And I even wrote it down at times. And I started talking to people about it and like letting the cat out of the bag, the writing on the wall, I really saw, I was playing tapes in my head both ways. Of not making the change, just staying in the comfort zone in my Jerusalem that was gonna burn down. Like denial, just, yeah, let's just wait and see what happens approach. Or looking at the writing on the wall, hearing my internal desire, prophecy, and saying, yep, we need to do this. But it's not that simple. And we see in chapters, in these few chapters of Jeremiah, that there's this continual, poor Jeremiah, he gets put in prison, he gets put in a cistern that has a thick layer of mud on it, because they just can't shut him up. You can't shut that part of your voice, part of yourself up either. Once the writing's on the wall, once we've kind of acknowledged it, it's like, there's no going back. Or we will have to go even further down the wrong path, maybe add in some numbing coping strategies to quiet that voice, to shut it up. And that's what literally is happening here. And right in the middle of all these dramatic stories and Jeremiah going through all of this are a few other stories. Of course there are. There's this story of the faithful Rechabites. And there are people that they were given instructions by their ancestors or ancestor to live a certain way, to never consume alcohol, and to never build houses, always live in tents. And I'm like, wow, what does this story mean? Like, it's just a random story that's kind of thrown in the middle of this. And I think God is using it to say, hey, there's a remnant, there's a part of everybody that knows, that is trying and is maybe succeeding in being faithful and good about something. Like, we're not all bad. Humans are not just bad. And there's a part of all of us, even when we've gone down the wrong path with a certain aspect of ourselves, and maybe it's not even bad. Maybe it's just not the right path. Maybe you're in the wrong career, the wrong marriage, the wrong location, other than what God wants for you. And there's a part of you that's probably always been pretty good about something. So there's evidence. He's saying, look, there's evidence that you really can do these things and live this way. And it's a good way. You'll get rewarded. Like, good things come when you live in a way that is honoring of God. And I think that's what we all, as part of this, we need to kind of grab onto that of ourselves. We need to love that part of ourselves, see the potential, the possibility, the evidence, so that we can tell the other part of us that's resisting and saying, no, I don't want to go, it doesn't make sense, that, hey, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. There's another story in there. Like, this is like, how do you make sense of all of this when you're looking at the human? But within the human, we feel like we're 2 people on one day, 10 people on another day. 1 week to week, we're like, what? So I think this is, metaphorically speaking, when we look at the whole of this from ourselves, we're like, oh yeah, I can totally see myself. You can see yourself and a part of yourself in these stories, or at least I can. And at one point, God even has him write a record of a prophecy on a scroll and take it to King Zedekiah. And Zedekiah he's reading it and he's like, I don't like what is written here. So he burns it. He reads it and he burns it. And so God just says, well, write it again. I have felt that way where I've written something. I used to do this. I haven't done this in a while. I probably should do it again. But in my early decision days, when I was seeing the writing on the wall, but I was like, I don't know. That's, could be really scary. I'm going to lose relationships. Who am I going to be without doing things this way. Like I was catastrophizing in my head, all these things that would change. And yeah, I think it'll be good over there, but I don't know. What if I'm wrong? And so I was writing letters to myself, from the place of where I was like on fire for the thing, for the change. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. We need to do it. So that my other self, when she was defeated, depressed, unsure, like, no, like, so that she could read it and be encouraged and reminded. Now, of course, the state of mind that I was in when I was defeated and discouraged, didn't want to hear all that. I was like, burn it. She didn't know what she was talking about. I think, like, it can be crazy making in those days when you see the writing on the wall, you know what's coming, and you might say, well, maybe I'll wait till it gets a little worse. Maybe it won't get worse. And you just kick the ball down the road and whatever it is, and you just stay stuck in mud in the bottom of a cistern, like, help, let me out. And you put that desire, that part of you, in the cistern. Like, nobody's going to hear you down there, and you're stuck. I'm going to fix you. These internal battles. So before, and this is completely natural. It is completely natural. So if you're in this phase, you've maybe heard a desire or a call, and you're like, I don't know. I think maybe you're wrong. Maybe the city's not going to burn down. Maybe we'll be okay. I feel pretty good now. It can't be that bad. Versus who voluntarily goes into annihilation, even with the promise of, hey, it's going to be all right. I'm going to protect you. Like, no, it's not natural. But again, God's ways are not our ways. And so we've got to be faithful like the Rechabites, and even like a part of ourselves. The evidence is there. We can do things. We've been through hard things before and survived. We've been through change. Like, we have some evidence there that, when we stick with the plan, a good plan, good things happen. So you've got to really draw on your own reserves to go forward. And you really won't regret it. But it is going to feel like some crazy making at the time. And that is part of the process. And we can make it harder on ourselves. Like Jerusalem, this example that we have here is, they're making it harder on themselves than it has to be. And maybe that's what we can identify with and go, oh yeah, I'm totally doing that. I should just kind of get with the program, do it. But it's just not always that easy. And you might have a lot of circumstances in your life that give you pause to say, well, or in doubt, and acknowledging this part of yourself. It's legitimate. It's hard. It's, other people in our lives, when we decide to voluntarily make a change, they're not always on board. I mean, that's the reality. They're like, they feel threatened. They start acting like crazy people. We spark that crazy in them. It might cause them to see the writing on their wall. And they're like, I didn't ask to see this. Go away. So there's a lot of this, this drama playing out in these stories in the Bible that we can really glean a lot of helpful information from on our own patterns of behavior and our own seasons of turmoil and change and hope and restoration. I think we're going to hear a lot of that in the rest of Jeremiah tomorrow. So stay tuned. See if I'm right. And maybe we'll all get the inspiration and the desire and the strength and the decision and commitment to be able to go forward into what we are being called to. Because the world needs people like the Rechabites that are really faithful and listening and heeding the call. That is actually where true peace, strength, confidence, all the things are found. And you actually build that up by stepping out on the water, as we will, we already know from our New Testament readings. All right, that's enough for today. Beautiful day. It's a little bit cooler here where I am. Thank goodness. Still very humid, but that's okay. And go have a wonderful day. It's Monday. TGIM. All right. Have a great week. Rise and shine.